Hey everyone, welcome to the live stream. We are continuing with Bumblebee model today, and I think what I'm going to do specifically is work a bit on the head. Let's see where the model is right now. Take the headphones off a little bit and take a look at the model. Okay, so as you can see, here's what it looks like without the head. Let's turn the head on. And I did a lot of work on the head last week, so today I want to focus on finishing it up and also doing the mouth. As you can see, here's the head, looking pretty good. It needs a little. There we go. And I'll probably do a little bit more detailing on it tonight. Getting ready to do some poly painting and that kind of stuff. But you can see right here is the mouth parts are still basically scan data. So that's just cleaned up scan data. And let's just take a look at the scan real quick. I need to take advantage of these visibility presets here. I'm not doing a good job of that. That's because I'm used to the old way of doing it. But this is what the scan looks like. So I'm gonna hide this stuff. So that's the scan that I started with, and then here's the model as it looks right now. So I'm gonna work on this. And mouth parts are pretty cool. I'm going to get some other reference in here, some 3D reference, just so we can get a better look at how the mouth parts work. I think for me, I'm going to start with the working with the mandibles. So let's turn this guy off and click on the mandibles here. So you can see that they're, generally speaking, they're usually sort of asymmetrically placed on bees anyways. So what I'm going to do is let's save this guy, and I'm going to load honeybee model so you can compare it. So this is what I'm working on right now, Bumblebee, and just for scale reference, this is a typical European honeybee. Okay, so computer sounds like it has indigestion. There's a little honeybee. Oh, so cute. You can see there's the mandibles on this thing. They look a little bit more like scoops or spoons. And I don't know if I have all the mouth parts in this one. This one was also done from scan data, so similar process. Looks like I don't have mouth parts for this guy. Let's go down here. Sorry, I know I'm digging through files on my hard drive, but it'll be worth it, trust me. At least I hope so. So here's an example of mouth parts kind of splayed out. So this I made based off of illustrations. And as you can see, they're pretty complex because bee mouth parts, generally speaking, most of the time they're sucking up the nectar from the flowers, right? But they also do a lot of other stuff with their mouths and also their mandibles. So a lot of times they use their mandibles for building the nest, creating the cells from the wax for the larvae to hang out in and all that kind of good stuff. This is an earlier model, so I don't think the mandibles are very good on this one, but let's see how to get these guys in the higher subdivision level. But these things kind of fold up and bend in all kinds of crazy ways. And so I'm going to be recreating this for the Bumblebee, but they're not going to be exactly the same. And unfortunately for the reference on this, I don't have a whole lot of good stuff. I had the scan data and these photographs, but I don't have a whole lot of illustrations for this particular model. So we're going to learn as we go. We can always start with the mandibles, and these just need to be a bit cleaned up a little bit more. Let's see if we can find a decent picture of the mandibles. Kind of hard to see because of all the goo and the fuzz and the dirt. And this one, of course, is way out of focus. Let's just start with some sculpting. So I already cleaned this up from the scan data and then did a quick ZBrush to create the topology. So that's what we have. And then I subdivided it. So it's about 55,000 points. So let's subdivide it a couple more times. I think 894,000 is probably enough. And I'm just going to kind of start bringing out some of these details here. I'm just kind of going along the edges here to kind of make them look a little bit sharper and a little bit more defined. Take the clay tubes and put it for a fairly low Z intensity and kind of use this like sandpaper to kind of go in here and start to refine the forms, you know, build up the surface towards these ridges and just kind of sand out some of the stuff that looks more like scan artifacts, but still trying to keep it nice and organic. Hello Rocco, how are you doing today? Tonight? Well, it's night where I am, but as you can see from behind me, we still have daylight at 9 o'clock at night here, which I think is kind of cool. My studio is gradually taking shape, hoping to improve the lighting over the next few weeks so I don't have this weird goofy lighting. I mean, we just moved into this house, and of course the walls in the studio are painted like lime green and yellow, and the ceiling is wood, so it's kind of a weird color combination. So it's going to do all kinds of crazy things with the lighting here in the video. It's not green screen, it's lime green screen. Key lime screen. Key lime green screen. Oh, cool. I like this schedule as well, so I'm going to keep to it. So I'm glad you like this time. I've been doing pretty well. A major move to Europe, so I'm in European time now, and that means, moving all the way across country and then all the way across the Atlantic. So it's been an eventful year for me, but I'm settling in now and getting into a groove finally after a huge change, and I'm enjoying it. Needless to say, the food here is pretty amazing. And so, I'm going to do a lot of work on this mandible, and since I'm lazy, I'm going to mirror it over to the other side so that I don't have to do it twice. Well, I'm going to try to anyways. Should be able to do it without too much problem. How is everybody else doing tonight, or today, depending on where you are? The Earth is round, last I heard, so it might be different where you are. Unless you're stuck in a black hole, in which case I'm sorry to hear that. This is a step that I normally do that it's not always like absolutely necessary, but I think going over the entire surface like this, even if it just ends up being a once over, helps me to understand the shape a bit better and also refine it, and also I can pick up on any errors that maybe, from the scan data that kind of transferred into to this version. But I also think it creates a more organic and sculptural look to it. I know when I was sculpting jewelry, and going through this process tends to give it more of a handcrafted look than trying to make everything like super clean. I'm doing pretty well. Like I said, the move has been an interesting one. Okay, so now I've got this kind of worked out like this. I think this is looking kind of nice. You can kind of compare it with the other mandible. Let's go over here and turn off the head for a second. So we can see this, and then turn off the other parts of the body. Still kind of disorganized, so. Okay. The reference out to the side, so you can kind of see, the result here is just a little bit more refined. This is still looking a little bit gooey. I mean, the shape's there, but this is a little bit sharper. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the H polish brush and just kind of go over it very lightly to kind of, not completely eliminate the marks, because I like the fact that there's a grain in here now, but just kind of knock them back a little bit, and then of course do a little bit more refining, and also hit it with a smooth brush a little bit as well. And this is just this is more like a finer grained of sandpaper, I guess. Well, it's polishing, right? What I'm using right now is PureRef. It's very popular right now with a lot of artists. It's great reference software because you just drag images and then rearrange them and organize them and even put annotations and stuff. But I generally just use it for just arranging the images around. And it's nice to have a file that I can just go back to, open up at any time, and then take a look. So these are a lot of these are images that I grabbed off the internet. Oh, here's a nice one. It's still kind of blurry. And then some of these images were provided to me by Steve Buckman, who is the person who also gave me the scan data. So I'm doing this project for him. He's a bee expert, certain books on bees. And so this is kind of a project we're collaborating on. So he cut up the poor little bee and took the pictures of it. And then this is from the internet. This is pretty nice in terms of the detail here, but it's still kind of hard to see exactly what the shape is of the mandibles. So, and this one's, it's okay. This, at least I can see this part, which is pretty similar to the honeybee. It's not that different. One technique you can use, I used to use Spotlight in ZBrush to just bring the reference right in on the screen. That worked pretty well too. But PureRef is kind of the way that I'm going now. And I think that's what almost everybody's using. I usually make a donation to the guy whenever I update the software. The nice thing about Europe is we got a lot of bumblebees here, many more than we had in Los Angeles, so that's kind of nice. So I'm running into them a lot more. And my wife has been building up a garden, beautiful garden, and so I got to break out my camera equipment and go out and start taking pictures. I kind of, well, the last couple years have been very hectic for me, but I haven't done as much macro photography as I'd like to, so I really want to get back into that. And since I have a nice garden, I can just go in the backyard and take lots and lots of pictures without having to go very far. Why don't I have the document full screen? You mean like this? I don't know, because I like it. You're talking about the reference or ZBrush? Let me see, maybe it's not broadcasting correctly. Let me check out YouTube real quick. Oh, it looks like it's got the full screen. Yeah. I don't know. Does that answer your question? You want to like zoom in and build like this kind of thing? I do use Spotlight occasionally for texture projection. Depends on what I'm trying to project. Here, what I could do, maybe I can do this, if this makes you happier. I'll increase the document size by, I don't know, let's do 124. And then I'll do resize. And then clear this. So is that better? I actually have been working on the bee's knees. If I look at the bring up the legs here, I was just working on this today. And they are pretty cool. just on the front legs. What I always love about, and this is on bumblebees as well as honeybees, is this cool notch in the foreleg that they use to basically clean their antenna. So you see a little clamp right here and this little notch. They actually drag their antenna through there to clear off all the goo and the pollen and stuff from the antenna. I just think it's I don't know, it's just something that I think is awesome. And then the bee's knees right here, they probably need a little bit more refinement, but they are definitely cool, anatomically speaking. And this is based off of the scan data. So I think it's pretty darn correct. Again, it's like having to split the difference between the scan data and the photography can be a little bit difficult, but that's why it's good to work with the scientists, because I can send this to them and they can say, give me notes on what's correct and what's not correct. The one reason that you might have for keeping a smaller document is having a really large document size can slow down ZBrush, believe it or not, because of the voodoo that it uses for drawing. So my machine is pretty powerful, so I'm not too worried about it. But if you don't have a very powerful machine, or you're working on a laptop, you might want to make your document size a bit smaller, and you can get better performance out of it that way. Like every once in a while I've been working on something that I want to use for an illustration, or I want to send a really high resolution image to get review on, so I'll resize the document like 8K and then draw the tool on it, and then you can see it's really slow in terms of the performance with a really large document size. And also if you're like zoomed in, like right, this is the actual document size. If I'm zoomed in, you can see if you're getting like artifacts like this, it might be because you're not looking at the model at actual size. It's easy to do because you can see it's like not very obvious if you're zoomed in on the document closer than the actual document size. So if you're getting this kind of artifact, you might want to hit like actual there, and then you'll get the actual size, and the anti-aliasing is a bit better in the preview. Yeah, I didn't have a real reason other than I was just using the default size to start with. I get kind of like tunnel vision when I'm working on these things, so I'm just seeing the model. But it's easier for you guys, and I don't mind changing the document size. Okay, so there we go with that. Then what I'm going to do is I want to add another level of noise. So if you take a look at some of the other parts of the model, like the legs here, you can see that I've got these dots here, and this is, I drew those on based on what I see in the images, right? And these dots, like where the hair comes out and everything. And you can see I'm also creating some areas that are kind of smooth like this. I'm in the process of doing that using the H polish brush. But I also have this other level of detail on here that's like super fine level of detail. So I'm going to put that on my mandible here as well. So what I'll do is I'll go in here to the surface, noise, and what I can do actually is I'll go back to the leg, and I already kind of created just a real quick surface noise for this thing. And if I go in here and choose noise and edit, you can see I already have these settings. I only spent like, maybe 45 seconds coming up with these settings. They're not super special, but you might like to have them consistent on the other parts of the body. So I'm going to copy these settings, close the noise. I'll just choose cancel and turn it off. And then go back to my mandibles. And now I have that on the clipboard. Oops, that's the eyes. Right, I'll go in here to surface, noise, and I'll just paste those settings and choose OK, and then just do like apply to mesh. So I have a kind of an overall noise, and I'm going to knock it a little bit back by going to geometry, clay polish. I'm going to hit the clay polish button and kind of knocks it back a little bit so it's not so over the top. And you could do this on a layer if you wanted as well. But it leaves a little bit of a mask behind, so I'm going to invert that mask and then hide the mask. And then just go over this with the inflate brush and smooth brush. And it allows me to kind of bring in some of that detail, that leftover residual mask can leave some really cool kind of noise to it. So as I inflate with that mask applied, you get this very kind of cool looking detail. And then I'm just smoothing it back, and you can see I can kind of, you know, I'm doing it with a brush as opposed to an overall inflate, because that way I can kind of, you know, determine where I want that noise to be a little bit stronger and to be a little bit like along the edges here and stuff. It just makes it look nice and organic. This is a technique I've been using forever. And if you watched my videos before, you probably seen me do it 100 times. Thanks. I'm glad that that I'm inspiring your stuff. I appreciate it. Can I apply a texture projection on an example model? Yeah, hold on a second. You just want to see how to use projection. I don't have one set up for this particular model, but let me think for a second here. Most of the photographs I have of insects, we have a lot of like specular highlights and that kind of stuff. But let me see this real quick. So I go in here and bring in polysphere. Subdivide it a couple times, and then go into texture, import. Let's see, I'm going to grab like these 4 textures, these wing textures. Wing texture is actually that's a good example. Let's do that. So I'll turn on the forewing membrane. And make sure we have symmetry on. And let's say I wanted to use a texture on this forewing right here from a photograph. So I just imported those textures, the wing textures, right, from my hard drive. So here they are. So I'm going to select one of these guys and choose add to spotlight. And this opens up spotlight. So now I have spotlight. So I mean, this is not ideal because we have specular highlights on it, but it could be a good starting place for a texture or something like that. Or maybe just a way to kind of figure out the veining, although I've already done the veins on this one. But let's say, you know, I've imported this one texture spotlight. Maybe I want to add some more. So I'm going to select this guy and Actually, the easiest way to do it is, yeah. Actually, with Spotlight open, I'll just go texture and re-import those textures. And it's going to add them over here. Let's move this off to the side. So you can see I have all these textures right here. And while I have Spotlight active, you can see I can move around. This is the Spotlight interface. If I drag in a blank part, it's going to move all these guys around. I can use the buttons here to arrange them. And then I can toggle over to ZBrush by hitting the Z. Well, it's all in ZBrush, but toggle over to sculpting mode by hitting the Z key, right? So I'm just going to position this in a way that kind of, you know, nice and big and fills most of the screen, and is also the camera is looking at it. Now, I have symmetry on here, so the projection does work with symmetry. So I'll get this kind of close, and this is not going to be super accurate, but good enough for demonstration. I'm going to press Z to go back to this mode and then grab one of these textures. I'll move this. You can see I'm kind of moving this off to the side here. They're still loaded. I'm just moving them away so that I can focus on this one. And then I'll just spend a few minutes kind of enlarging it and getting it, you know, kind of close. Maybe I just want to capture some of this stuff. So it's kind of close, ready to project. And now what I need to do is go right here. This is probably the most important step. So I'm going to click on Spotlight Radius here. So what this is going to do is this is going to increase the radius of the Spotlight projection. So if I don't increase this, it's not going to be in projection mode. So just drag on this to increase it. It's a little bit hard to see, but you can see there's a little circle growing there. And then I'll just let it go when I have enough, and I'll hit Z. Now this Spotlight projection, the size of it is just giving me kind of a preview of the projection. That's not actually the size that's going to be painted on the surface. That is determined by the brush size. So you got to keep that in mind, that you have both brush size and Spotlight size going on at the same time. So let's go over to the paintbrush. I choose the paintbrush, and let's also set our material to like a nice white material. And I'll just start dragging across the surface here to paint on the model. So the reason I'm seeing these black lines here, let me undo that, is I actually already had poly paint on the model. I had black lines. So by painting in the model, it's kind of reactivating the poly paint. So we're seeing those black lines. So that's just an artifact that I forgot to get rid of that poly paint. So let's fill the whole model with white. I'll just do select a white color. RGB is 100%, and I'll choose color, fill object, just to get rid of everything. And then let's try that again. I'll just start painting across my model, and you can see now I'm projecting the colors onto the model itself. It's, you know, not lined up with the veins because the image is a little bit different than the scan data that I use. But at the very least, you can see the idea here. And then to go back into ZBrush mode, I'll press Shift Z. That turns Spotlight off altogether. But you notice that the poly paint has been symmetrical, which is a real time saver. And then I could use this as a way to start painting textures in the model and use poly paint to kind of clean that up. That's basically the process that I'm going through. Certified training, that's kind of up to me. I just need to put the course together, figure out when I'm going to do that. I'm in the middle of recording a course for Gnomon, so I haven't had a time to set up the Maxon certified training, but please keep bugging me about that, because I'd like to get that started before the end of the summer. So it's a fair amount of work, because what I'm going to have to do is figure out a way to do hybrid, record a whole lot of videos, and then set up a class so we can have online classes as well. I hope that clears up your or gives you some ideas on how to use Spotlight. It is extremely useful. I've used it for all kinds of things, so I highly recommend playing around with it. The hardest thing about using Spotlight is getting used to this whole idea of the different modes, right? So right now I'm just regular ZBrush, blah, blah, blah. If I press Z, then I'm back in Spotlight mode, and I can edit my pictures. And as you can see, if I drag off to the side here, there's my images, and I can do things like arrange them and scale them, blah, 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 right? And then there's the actual projection mode. And the most important thing, like I said before, is to get projection going. By default, the spotlight radius is down at 0. So that means that if I hit Z to go into paint mode, I see the image there, and then if I try and paint on it, it doesn't work, right? So I'll press Z again to toggle the interface, and then increase that spotlight radius. Press Z again, now I'm in projection mode. And when you project, it can also, I'm just projecting color because I'm using the paintbrush, but you can project the details from the images onto the model in terms of texture detail. It's just basically like projecting alpha. It's using the values as a way to push in or pull out the vertices. So for something like this, it's not ideal because I have all these specular highlights on here. But if I had an image that didn't have any specular highlights and just had the detail and the color, then that works really well. If you're using like doing a character and using like XYZ textures or something like that. Okay, so let me go back to, I'm going to turn this off. Shift Z to turn it off altogether. So Shift Z turns it on and off. Z switches between editing mode and projection mode. So I'll go back to the mandibles. And go back to my nice little material here, and what was I doing? Oh yeah, I was coming in here just doing a little bit of inflate and smoothing. Okay, thank you, ZBrush. The other thing that I've been holding off on the certification program is they just created a new version of ZBrush for iPad, and they also updated the desktop. So I was waiting for that to come out so I could get updated myself on all the new features. And I was in the beta for it, so if you install ZBrush, you can see my image. Believe it or not, it's not a bug, it's a mech. So the ZBrush for iPad is very cool. I've been using it a lot, even on models like this. So I'll often, put my models on a folder on Dropbox, and then I can go over to my iPad and download the model on my iPad and work on it for a bit if I'm watching a movie or something like that, watching TV, and then put it on Dropbox, come back to my desktop and work on it. Or you can also use GoZ and Wi-Fi to transfer the model between iPad and the desktop version. So they're fully compatible, which is great, because also if you have to go on the road or something, and you're going to have some downtime, you want a ZBrush, you can get some work done. And as I mentioned before, I had a situation where my computer completely had a massive meltdown because in the middle of updating Windows, the power went out and it messed up my hard drive. So I had to reinstall Windows, and so my computer was down for like a week or so while I was trying to sort that out. And during that time, I had to work on it for clients. But luckily, I had backups on Dropbox, and I was able to work on my iPad. And now my computer is healthy again. Thank you. Okay, I think that's overdone a little bit. So I'm going to clear the mask and then use like H polish to come in here and just, just do a little bit. I don't want to overdo the detail. This blue material exaggerates the detail a little bit because it's a matte cat material. That's why I like it. So I don't want to completely obliterate the detail. My end goal for this model is I am going to create UVs and textures for it and bring it into Blender and use Blender for my render, my fur, and all that kind of stuff. Because these guys are super fuzzy. Little smooth parts that might get worn down a bit. Like that. And then what I'm going to do is I have a brush in here, a custom brush called B dots, and I'm going to go in here and just use B dots to kind of create some of those dots in here. Maybe not too much. I'm going to bring down the Z intensity a bit. It's too much. So I'll show you how I created this brush. I created it with, as you can see from the icon, it's an extraction brush. And these guys I really love a lot. They're really fun for, you know, because sometimes when you create detail, you want it to be consistent through the whole body. And extraction brush is a great way to do that. So what I did is originally, if I go into the abdomen here, here's my abdomen. You know, I was creating this detail right here, which I really liked a lot. I thought, to me, it looks a lot like what I see in the. So I spent a lot of time trying to come up with something that looks like the abdomen of my little bee. I thought that did a pretty good job of it. But once I kind of created the detail that I like and started to draw it on the surface, I wanted to create a brush that replicates it. So the first thing to do to create this kind of brush, extraction brush, is make sure you create an undo marker for your surface. So control click on the undo marker, and then I'm going to go to extractor, do extract, drag rect, and kind of position it so it's parallel to the screen here. And then I'm going to increase my brush size a little bit. And then to do the actual extraction, you press the G hotkey. You notice that the cursor turns bright blue, and I'll just drag the selection and release, and you can see that creates an alpha. And this also captures, if I had like texture on here, polypaint, it'll capture the texture as well. And then you can go on here and oops. You know, this is the result. I can draw that on the surface. That's a great way to create consistent detail. And you can capture from anything. What I've done before is like, I had some Megascans bones that I created a long time ago. Or I didn't create them, I got them from Megascans. But I was working with them in a project that required realistic bones. And so I took the Megascans bones, converted the texture into polypaint, subdivided the model, and brought out some of that detail, and then used the extractor brush to basically make some bone brushes based on Megascans, and that worked really well. So then anytime I'm sculpting bones, I can use that as a way to bring in bone texture, So that looks pretty cool. So now what I think I want to do is see if I can duplicate this mandible and then copy it over so I don't have to recreate everything. Let's hide the abdomen and the wings and the legs. Once again, I should be using these. Yes, let's use the visibility presets here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is duplicate right mandible, and then I want to mirror this over, and you can do that using the mirror deformer. Well, actually what I could do is I should be able to use it in Subtool Master, right? Yeah, Subtool Master. So I'll choose mirror, and I'm going to do merge into one subtool. No, I want to append it as a new subtool, And I believe I want to merge across the x-axis, so I'll choose OK. There we go. Perfect, and it still has its subdivisions and all that kind of good stuff. So subtool master mirror is really good. Now I'll just turn on transparency. Let's go to lower subdivision level. Get our gizmo here. Make sure I don't have any masks on here. And then just position this. So that way I don't have to recreate all the detail on this other mandible. It's probably not perfectly symmetrical in shape, but it's close enough. That's good enough. We can fiddle with the position a little bit later. The bone scan, what formerly Megascans, now Fab, right? Let's see. Fab.com? I don't know. Yeah. So I guess they've combined everything into Fab now, but it used to be Megascans. It was like some of these, yeah, Quixel, these bones. And these are free. This one's free anyways, or they're pretty cheap. So download this. I don't know if this is the original same Quixel that I had, but you know, Megascans, I don't know how you guys feel about this new Fab thing. I guess they got to make their money, but I liked Megascans the way it was. Even though they didn't have anything under the sun, you knew every model was really good. And you know, now I guess they've taken everything from ArtStation and Megascans and Sketchfab and combined it all into one wonderful site. So you got, you know, the whole point of arthropods is that they have an exoskeleton. It's the same rant I go through on every freaking Halloween, but whatever. Okay, that's not a very good spider. See what I mean, though? I mean, I can't go on this without getting upset because I see things like that and it drives me crazy. Anywho, take a look on scans. Grab yourself, if you get one from Quixel, it's probably going to be pretty good. And they even have a ZBrush format. This one's free, and then you can grab some nice bone textures off of that. Let's see if I still have those bone brushes. Ah, I do. So I'll bring this open. You can see that has the texture on it. Does it have the texture? Yeah. It's just for some reason the texture wasn't loaded with the brush, but it imported with the brush. So let's there we go. So that's my bone brush that I created from Quixel Megascans. Yay. Kind of fun. And then as you can see, it also has the alpha, so we get a nice kind of subtle texture there. There's honeybee. There we go. And let's make sure we save. I think okay. So you have Go Z. So Go Z allows you to move objects between like Maya. I use it for what you call it, Keyshot. Maya, Keyshot, Cinema 4D. I think Blender. And some other software. I don't know if they have Go Z for bringing in stuff from Megascans or Sketch. I think there was a Megascans plugin. I know there's a Megascans plugin for Unreal, but I don't know about ZBrush. Maybe there was at one point. It seems dim to that I barely remember that. But Go Z is the and then there's also Bridge that works with Go Z for Keyshot. So I think it depends on the software. Yeah, I think a great way to like mess with the extractor brushes is to do that. Grab yourself something from Fab, maybe a free model, and convert the texture into polypaint, and then do your grab, because otherwise it's not going to grab the texture. Okay, so now I can get rid of the mandible that I don't need. So this one is okay. Right, because this doesn't have any detail on it. Yeah. Let's rename this one. This one. I messed up the names. This should be left right here. That's right, and it's just a copy of right. So we can get rid of that. All right, turn on the head. There we go. Pull this guy out a little bit. So cute. Sell it. So now the real challenge, which is the mouth parts. I turn on the solo button. This is what I have. So this is kind of just right out of the scan data with a little bit of cleanup. So if I look at the scan, find the mouth parts. Yeah, I mean it's like. It's a bit of a mess. Because it's dead, you know, it's a scan of a dead bug. And so the mouth parts are going to get all messed up here. Let's take a look at this scan. I have two different scans here, so we can compare. So this is the one that I actually used. And these, I believe, are the palps, but I don't know where the actual proboscis is. So let's take a look here. Let's see if I can find some reference on mouth parts. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my honeybee mouth parts as at least a starting place. So I'm dragging these into So I think these guys are similar enough that we can make some comparisons here. So I'm just dragging a bunch of images in here of honeybee mouth parts. So I'm going to select this and do images. Okay. So this is what I mean. These are like the palps, which is kind of what we're seeing right here, I believe. That's the front leg. That's my mouth. This is like a cross section. I mean, this is what's really cool about the mouth parts is this central section right here, which is actually what it uses to suck up the nectar. This is a cross section of that, so it's like a straw. And you can see this is a nice illustration of what that looks like. But translating this stuff into 3D is not easy, as you can see. It's something I've been working on mouth parts for a long time and still have yet to perfect. That being said, let's see if we can find anything online that would be helpful for our honeybee. Yeah, most of the time you're just going to end up getting honeybee stuff because bumblebees, they don't have the same kind of press that a honeybee does. Carpenter bee, the honeybee. Yeah. Kind of basically the same here. Bumblebee tongue. Now, there we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Bumblebee.org. Why didn't I think of that? Something better than nothing. Tiny images. Okay, that might work a little bit better. Got legs up here. This right here is kind of nice and useful. So this is what we're looking at. And then we have the long tongue in the middle. Okay, so we're going to go based off of that. I don't know. For this particular project, I don't know if it's going to be focused on the that closely in detail, but I have done it before for the honeybee. Let's see. You can almost steal some of these mouth parts. So you can see for the honeybee, I literally extruded this shape and sort of wrapped it around, that kind of sculpted the detail on top of it. And of course I forget how I did that, but I think what I did is if I go in here and choose texture, import, let's go back to I created this profile from that reference imagery, and in Photoshop. And let's do this. I'm going to make an alpha. So I can turn off the texture, and let's just go to like polysphere or something in here. And see if I remember how to do this. Okay, curve alpha. Curve alpha works like this. It literally extrudes an alpha. Extrudes a geometry based on an alpha, but you can see it also tapers. And we have this goofy little curve here. In this case, we have a star. So theoretically, I could change it to this alpha, and the curve brushes drive me a little bit crazy, I have to admit. But you can see I am getting that that shape now. So let's undo that. And what I need to do is get rid of the tapering that's on here. So let's go back to this is just a random sphere that I have as a starting place. So now I can go into the brush palette. No, sorry, stroke palette. Let's dock this. And see if I can get under curve. Let's do curve mode. Let's do as line. And under curve functions, or sorry, curve modifiers, I don't want the size to be affected. So let's see if that works. Let's do this. Let's make the brush size quite a bit larger. And there we go. Now we have an extrusion based on that alpha. So let's bring down the draw size a little bit and see if I can do something like this. Right? Got the weird curve in the front, but I could just get rid of that. Right, so now what I can do is I'm going to go in here and do subtool, just do a group split. So I have two different objects now. I don't have to worry about the sphere. And then I'll go in here and I'm going to choose the selection brush and hide that. Do geometry. modify topology, delete hidden. Then I'm going to press W for the old gizmo and put it at the center of the object, and then press the home button to get it at the center of the grid. So now we're getting somewhere, right? And then I'm going to rotate it, hold the shift key, rotate it 90 degrees, just bring it down like this. So I have a closed off end right here, and I have an open end right here, so I could do close holes. That works pretty well. Nope, it doesn't. So instead of close holes, what I'll do is I have this. Let's rotate. So this is X, this is positive X right here. This is negative X. So I do mirror and weld. Straightens it out. Now I have closed on both ends. All right. So now what I'll do is I'll make this longer. Do a Z remesh. I think what I'll do is, before I do a Z remesh, I'm going to create some polygroups. Make that a polygroup. Make this a polygroup. Just so as I'm doing the Z remesh, it doesn't mess up the stuff in the middle. Let's see if this will work. Z remesh, do, it's 15,000, so let's just say, well, let's say half. And keep groups and do a Z remesh. It depends. Is the music, do you consider the music music, or do you consider it noise? Is it too loud? Yeah, I took out the headphones. Let's see. Does this work? No, that looks like crap. The music in the background is my own goofball composition that I wrote a long time ago. I like to write my own silly music, and it becomes useful because I put it in the background without having to worry about royalties or whatever. It looks terrible, so let's redo this. Maybe not keep groups, and let's keep the same poly count. That's a little better. But that's one way I could do an accurate version of that center, the center tongue. And of course that's based on honeybee. I don't know if this is, but that's the profile of the honeybee tongue. That's got hairs in the middle there, which you can do with fiber mesh. I don't know if it's the same for the Bumblebee, but I'm guessing it's probably pretty similar. This is why we need more science on bees, so that we have, because I got all this information on honeybees, and then everything else, just very, very little information. And not to go pontificate, but a lot of times when we support science for the sake of science, in other words, a lot of times we want to support science just because it benefits us, like cancer research or whatever. Sometimes supporting pure science just for the sake of science pays off in major ways. You have dividends that are completely unforeseen. There's so many things you can learn from insects that you can apply to engineering and that kind of stuff. It's a shame that we've taken such a myopic view of scientific research. But that's why it's so hard to, if you're a scientist and you're trying to get funding and you're like, I want to know how bumblebee tongues work, it's not very easy to get funding to do that kind of research. Here's a close-up of honeybee. You can see the tongue and the mandibles there. So it gets hard to get this information, to get it accurate anyways. But at least I think I can use this for our honeybee tongue. It looks like this guy's got a little blobby at the end there. I doubt that's the actual name of it. Oh, I'm glad you like the music. Here, I do have it on, what do you call it, Bandcamp. Here, you can check it out. If you're curious, I have a few goofy albums. They're kind of just a weird pet project that I do for fun. The name of the band is Bumblebee. It's really just me and GarageBand, and also Reason. Of course, I named it after a big, scary arachnid. But this record, Scorpion Valentine, the name of the song is called Telesoul, and it's really just two dissonant chords over a drum beat. But you can check that out if you're curious. And then I have 3 albums, so it's sort of psychedelic, goofy psychedelic space rock. Okay, so let's see if we take this. I'm going to use it because why not? So we can go back to our Bumblebee. So I think what we're seeing here, this looks like the tongue right here. It's kind of fused to the glia, or the palps, right here. So I can take that. Let's append. This. Take the mouth and just duplicate it. And just put it all the way down here. Put a slight taper on this. Let's see, I'm going to use a taper deformer. Then let's go in here and accept that. And then let's go in here and do a, let's see, we'll do bend curve. Could have done this with the curve brush, but curve brushes, I always feel like I start working with them and it's like modeling with chewing gum after a while. It starts to drive me a little bit nuts. So I'm going to use this instead and put a little curve in there. And that's kind of cool. This is still, well, that's not even in the center of the grid anymore. Yeah, it is. I still have this in the center of the grid, even though the mouth is a bit off center. Let's see, I'll accept that. call that the tongue for now. Might change it later. Yeah, Marcelo, that's you're describing life on the planet Vulcan, which is where I'd much rather be sometimes. I guess on Vulcan, science comes before politics. Everything's logical. Sorry, I have Spock. So I guess I ended up modeling the cross section after all. So thanks for the question about that. Kind of inspired me to go ahead and just show how I did it. Of course, when I did it before, that was like years ago, so I remember how I did it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and figure out how to model these palps. And they're really just kind of like big curved triangles. So let's take a look at them real quick, like this. The three-dimensional shape is a little bit trickier than you might. So there's our tongue. The guy looks like he hit a window. So it's a bit hard to say because on the honeybee you have these long sections and you have the smaller palps which kind of unzip. So I'm just thinking here. See, I think I had one more picture of the honeybee head that was pretty good. Sorry, Bumblebee. What I really need to do is capture one, but I don't want to hurt a Bumblebee. So I'll just wait for one to die and nearby and then stick it under a microscope. I think what I'll do is I'll take this and let's try and be as true to the scan as we can. So I'm going to drag a selection around this. And then delete hidden. Oh, my brain just stopped. There we go. Modify topology, delete hidden. Let's save this real quick. And break out the old Dynamesh. And turn on solar for a second. And just going to quickly clean this up. So somebody's asking about cleaning up Dynamesh the other day using Sculptors. So this is a good opportunity to do that. So let's take a brush like a good old snake hook. Yes, I know. And I'm just going to use Sculptors to kind of erase this stuff that we don't need. I'm going to use Sculptors with Inflate just to kind of merge this and smooth it, simplify it. Pretty well. That's probably good enough. You know, and we could have sculpted that, or I could have sculpted that pretty quickly, but I like working on the scan data because it's keeping me helping me keeping me grounded in the reality in the scan, and also the scale as correct as possible. Though it's easy to start modeling these things and start drifting away from the scan, so that's why I always make duplicates of the subtools and have backups. So if I get too far away from the original, I can always go back and adjust accordingly. So I'm going to do something like this. Let's turn off Sculptress and do Z remesh. Get it down fairly low. And then it's easy to smooth this stuff out. And let's go back to our scan data and see how far off we got. Not too bad. So I'm going to do a mirror and weld. Let's turn off local symmetry. Actually, for this one, let's not do mirror and weld. Let's do subtool master mirror, but this time I'll merge into one subtool. There we go. That way you don't really want to merge them. I keep them as separate pieces for now. It looks like my head is not centered on, let's see, is it? Yeah, the head is slightly off center, and probably means the entire model is off center. So what I'm going to do, let's do all low, and let's turn off the mouth, the new mouth. And let's go to head. That's reset. It's not very exact. What we could do is send that whole, no, can't do that. That's better. Go to save next. So here's our honeybee. I think that's from the scan without the mouth. Yeah, the thing about the honeybee mouth is it folds into kind of like a Z. It's a really cool mechanism. But it has these parts right here kind of fold up into like, I don't know how you would describe it, kind of like a car jack or something like that. So this rotates back here while these stay in place, these muscles, and then this sort of curls back as well. I don't know if that's the same on the Bumblebee. So I might keep this fairly simple for now and consult with my specialist, figure out exactly what's going on with the Bumblebee mouth. But I know there is another section here. If we look at the scan, right here, this is what like the original scan of the mouth looks like. So I'm going to keep the other part simple for now, and what I'm going to do is maybe sculpt this section right here based off the scan data, because I don't have any other pictures of this. So again, I'm going to duplicate this and move it down. Move this a little bit more centered. But you can see there's kind of like a hinge right here. So we'll keep this as one part. And I'm going to select lasso. Hide this and choose geometry, modify topology, delete hidden, let's do Dynamesh, and then let's also do a mirror and weld on here just to get it symmetrical. Okay. Oh, it's because I hit no. Duh. Okay, so now I just have the basic shape. I'm going to go in here and let's actually Dynamesh this a little bit higher res. There we go. Take the old clay tubes, turn on symmetry, and just kind of clean this up a little bit. So there's going to be a little bit of speculative fiction going on here. Just trying to figure out exactly what's going on with this model. Also, I need to put this to dynamic. Yeah, that works better. You get some really cool ideas for alien anatomy just by taking scan data and just messing with it to see where these shapes come from. Oh, there's literally a spider crawling across my Cintiq. A big sucker too. All right, come here. Come here. Nope, he crawled into the Cintiq. Okay. You can stay there as long as you eat flies. Too bad I'm not modeling a spider. We saw, my wife and I were moving our compost container, man, we saw a spider. Oh my god. Well, it's probably big as the palm of my hand, but huge abdomen, bigger than my thumb. I was very excited because when our 6-year-old daughter saw it, she said, "Cute." I'm like, that's the right response, man. These people with the killer with fire, I can't stand it. Spiders are awesome. I have no idea what this is, but I think it looks cool. So I'm going to keep it. Okay, let's do something like that. And now I'm going to do ZBrush. Oh, spider's back. Come on. Oh, now he's gone again. I was hoping to hold him up for the camera, but he keeps running off. Did I actually ZBrush that? And one more time. And just do a clay polish just to neat it up a little bit. So now I'm just going to really quickly kind of, whoops, turn on symmetry. Turn off symmetry for a second, put this at the center and reorient the gizmo, and then turn on symmetry. There we go. And I'm just going to kind of move this up for now. Again, this is all a little bit on the temporary side until I can find some more information on the mouth parts. Also depends on, you know, if I'm doing this for animation, the focus of it might not be the mouth, so I'll get it correct-ish for now and try and do a more accurate one later. And that's what we have. So let's save this and do a little bit of cleanup here. A Shin Godzilla head, 5th form, and I was wondering if you have a good way to make the bumpy yet hard surface on the skin. What I would say is, yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar to the way that I do, insect exoskeletons, because they are hard. They're also kind of lumpy. You want something that's organic, doesn't look like it's mechanical. And so the way that I would go about doing this is, let's say, like, I'm going to go just for this bee head real quick. Low subdivision level, and it will delete higher, right? And let's pretend this is your Godzilla head, right? Think lizard instead of insect. So let's say I have the base topology here, and then I'll just subdivide it. And the way that I kind of go about doing it is, I do it in passes. So I use the clay tube brush, usually turn on backface masking and a low Z intensity, maybe like between 5 and 10. And you just kind of start to go over the geometry like this. And the point here is to partially to refine the forms. This is similar to, like, if you were sculpting with clay, you would take a series of rake tools, going from very coarse to very fine, and you go over the clay to kind of refine those forms. Like, I can start to bring out, these ridges right here. Use the Alt button to kind of dig in, and you can see I can start to define the forms, but I'm leaving behind this kind of grain because of that square alpha, and that kind of creates sort of a bumpiness underneath, because, sorry, I let this finish, and so this is kind of the technique I use. So I start to go in here, and you create hardness by defining like these ridges, go in here and just kind of these transitions from sort of a soft transition to a hard transition and that kind of thing. You can start to imply sort of hardness in the surface while still being sort of organic, and say you just go over the model, and then you can go over with age polish with a really low Z intensity and smooth. Also hold the shift key and bring that to a low Z intensity. So you start to get rid of the obvious alpha, this square alpha, but not so much that it disappears completely. So now you're getting that kind of bumpiness. So this would be kind of equivalent, as like you were sculpting with clay. This would be like going over it with a solvent, like water or alcohol or diluted alcohol, to keep that organic bumpy quality, but to smooth away the marks left by the tool. And you can sort of see that, this is perfectly symmetrical, so it looks kind of, obvious, but you probably want to do it with the symmetry off. But that's, the material, of course, the specular highlights and that kind of stuff are also going to factor into a lot to how hard or soft something looks. But that's kind of a good way to start to get something that's nice and organic. And, I haven't done Godzilla, but I've done quite a few lizards. Same thing, right? But surprisingly few dinosaurs. I don't think I've done any dinosaurs in a long time. There's somebody, if I can find my... I'm looking somebody up for you real quick who is an expert on Godzilla. And I can never remember his name. Unfortunately, I don't have his name handy. I'm gonna have to post his information next week, but you can find him on Instagram, and he's such a great. Oh, I just found him. If you look up here, I'm just gonna hold it to camera. Okay, this guy right here. You can't see a damn thing there, right? Look him up on Instagram. He does a lot of great lizards. He's a great ZBrush artist and a really good guy. And he's done a lot of Godzilla sculpts. So he could probably give you some really good, really great suggestions as well for doing Godzilla. And he's just an artist who deserves lots and lots of followers. Dragonfly wings. Yeah, that's a good one. I believe, okay, for that one, I did some damselfly wings, and I think I have them on my YouTube channel. Let's go to YouTube. See if they're up there. Let's see. Oh, I have a whole thing on bee mouths. Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, that's a great question, and I love to answer it. So what I will do is next week, I'll take a break from the bee, and we'll talk about doing some dragonfly wings. How about that? I know if you go to Entomology Animated, though. Thanks for giving me a chance to plug my websites. I should put this on my YouTube channel. I don't know why it's not. Sculpting an ebony jewel wing damselfly. I think this is, the reason is this is a, that this is a time lapse, so it doesn't have narration to it. Maybe I didn't quite get to the wings. I had this weird YouTube thing where it doesn't actually play the ads. It just spins for a few seconds and then skips the ads. So if we get into, yeah, it's because this is a time lapse, which I don't have it on my YouTube channel. Because time lapse. Well, I think there's some narration to it. I don't know if I got up to the wings in this one. So what I'll do is next week I'll talk about the wings for doing dragonflies and damselflies, because I have done a few dragonflies before, and I do have a process. It's just more than I can show tonight. It's only got about 10 minutes left in the live stream. So next week we'll talk about dragonfly wings, and it's a process. I've done it, several times, and it's hard to do because dragonfly wings are actually very three-dimensional. They're not perfectly flat. So when you see animation of CG dragonflies, it drives me crazy when their wings are perfectly flat, because that's not ideal. That doesn't do what dragonfly wings do. The beauty of dragonfly wings is that they're three-dimensional shape. When they're flapping, they create these vortices of air, like little little air ball bearings, and the dragonfly just basically rolls on these little vortices of air. But those things aren't created if the wing is totally flat. I saw somebody who's posting dragonfly animation online, and they were very proud of themselves, but I had to resist the urge to tear it to pieces because it had a lot of problems. To the untrained eye, it looked perfectly nice, but it just, they hadn't spent enough time actually studying dragonflies, and they missed a lot of what's cool about dragonflies. So, we'll talk about that next week. And so I'll just finish up tonight by taking a look at the model so far, the Bumblebee model, that is. And I think this is almost ready. What I need to do next for this one is have almost all the details done. So I'm ready to actually start poly painting and creating UVs and that kind of stuff. But I promised that I would have this done for my friend this week, so I got to do that over the next couple days. But here's the Bumblebee model. It looks odd because it doesn't have hair. And Bumblebees, of course, awfully fuzzy. And then I still have the scan data here on the mouth. Let's turn that off. And I'll work on the mouth a little bit more. But, it's a start. But she's looking pretty good. And let's do all high here. So you can see all the detail. So I got to go under the head here and kind of scoop this part out. The legs are my favorite part. They take the longest, but there's so many cool, interesting shapes on the legs. These little depressions and these little, it's just a kind of beautiful sculpture. This little clumpy bit right here where they actually mash up the pollen in this, in this part right here, and then as they do that, the pollen, they have these long hairs on the pollen baskets, and as they mash up the pollen, it kind of slowly dribbles or migrates down here to the pollen baskets. That's why you see these guys after they've been out working for a while. They have the big old blobs of pollen on their legs. It's so cool. And then they have these nice little spikes here. It looks weird because the wings are in a weird position just because it's based on the scan data. So if, when I get to the point of rigging these things, I'll have to flatten them out, which also makes them look kind of strange, but it makes it easier to rig them. I think the other thing that they need is this right here, the muscle part of the veins hasn't quite been refined yet, so they're not quite attached to the body correctly. So that's something I got to do in the next few days. Is get that sorted out. But that's for the most part almost there, almost done. And I think the wings need some detailing too. The wings are too smooth. So if we look at our reference here, you can see that the wings also have they're covered in teeny tiny hairs. So I like to create these little dots in this kind of like pattern here. Because then, when you're actually rendering these things, you get the sort of transparency, translucency. They're not perfectly transparent, but you also need this kind of detail in the specular highlights to make it look realistic. Again, you don't want to, they're not perfectly flat. They have a three-dimensional shape to them, and that's only going to show up in the specular highlights. And this detail kind of helps that a lot as well. I kind of like the bulges here and this sort of tension that you see between the wing veins and the actual wing membrane. And then teeny tiny little hairs all over the wings themselves. It's really cool. That's something that definitely, if you're doing an insectoid creature, science fiction creature, something like that, and you're trying to create more interesting looking wings, think about covering the with tiny little hairs and little blobs here. Obviously, if you look at like butterfly wings, and have a lot of scales, but also hairs, same with moths, and that kind of detail can be very interesting. Even if it's fairly sparse, it's more interesting than just putting kind of a plastic looking flat thing. So I'll do the next few minutes to just kind of how I would go about doing that here on this wing. And let me see, we're at 225, so I'm going to subdivide it. And in this case, the hairs, the dots are kind of evenly spaced and they're about the same size. So don't want to use like a spray stroke on it. That's not going to quite be right. But maybe I might first start by just creating this kind of texture right here. And I think I could do that by, let's say if I take the standard brush. Yeah, I might do this first. Start from the veins and just bring up the intensity of the smooth brush, and just kind of making a little slight wrinkles here and then smoothing them out. So it's kind of like sculpting cloth in a way. But just so that there's an impression of tension here between the veins and the wings. You can also do something like this. Actually, use the SK cloth brush for this. Yeah, that's nice. Kind of just lay down some strokes and then smooth. And then you can start to hopefully I remember to turn symmetry on. Yeah, I think, yeah, I'll try and get, one of the things I'd like to do for this Bumblebee project, or I'm planning on doing, is doing an entire series. You know, I've already recorded hours and hours and hours of sculpting on this. I've only shown a little bit on the live stream. I'm going to do a whole course on it for Udemy, all the way up from, you know, from beginning of working the scan all the way up to final rendering in Blender. But yeah, tips and tricks video is a good idea. I do have, you know, some stuff on Udemy already that's more focused on jewelry design, but it's still also kind of fundamental ZBrush stuff. But yeah, the YouTube channel is something I'm going to start filling out as soon as I get a little bit, you know, now that I've actually finished the great migration, the move, and got a nice studio setup going here, and start recording some YouTube videos. So I appreciate the suggestions, because that gives me an idea of what you guys are really interested in seeing, because I don't want to do the same thing that everybody else is doing, obviously. But I can do some, and you know, some YouTube shorts and that kind of stuff, as well as some videos and tips and tricks, because I like recording videos. I know, it's crazy. Like I said, right now my time is occupied because I'm working on Gnomon series for Maya. Update to that should be out by the end of the summer. This is okay, but it might look like it's gotten a little too dented. Like, I don't know if I'm getting quite the subtlety that I want here. So when this kind of thing happens, I'm going to downshift by going down a couple levels on subdivision and just doing a quick smooth here. And then D to go back up. It looks okay. I don't know if that's exactly the detail that I'm looking for, so I might have to require a little bit more experimentation. These are kind of like squiggly lines. It kind of reminds me of the stuff that I did on a scarab beetle. So these are a bit more squiggly cellular lines, and this is a little bit more like wrinkles. But you know, I don't think it's completely wasted, because I like those wrinkles being there. You know, it's better than being perfectly smooth. It looks like something that I could kind of sculpt on top of this. But sometimes, you know, I mean, it happens where you're trying to capture the character of a detail, and it often takes a few experiments before you start to get it right, before it starts to really look like your reference here. So this is something that I might create like a custom brush for, or something like that. Okay, so for next week, I'm going to, because of the request, talk more about wings, and I'll specifically talk about dragonfly wings and show some of the dragonflies that I've done, and then talk about the approach and how to create them from the beginning. So I think that's a great topic for next week. So thanks again for tuning in tonight. Really appreciate it. Thanks for all the great comments and the great conversation. And I'll see you next week. And if you keep bugging me, I will actually get start recording some YouTube stuff. It's nice to hear that you guys actually are curious and you want to see some things. So I'll do that. Until next time, talk to you later, and have a good day or night.